welcome to this edition of a new edition of the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, and with me, as always, is my man Seth Price down there, DC, Maryland, Virginia, home of Price, Benowitz, and Blue Shark that you can see behind him. Seth, how's your week going this week?
You know what? I feel like we're getting some traction. I'm excited.
Good, good. I got my ass kicked this week. Caught a little head cold. You might be able to hear it in my voice. And then we had a transition where we have a new lawyer starting. Old lawyer left, and the old lawyer left 12 cases on a docket today in a courthouse close by. And the new lawyer, doesn't really have the, experience in the mechanics of that courthouse. So I had to step up today and sort of, walk them through it. So I had 12 files down in criminal court this morning, 9 consults in the afternoon to get it teed up for him for next week. So I'm exhausted, and I'm thinking, God, if I did this every day, I'd never get anything else done.
Well, look, when it wasn't out when we started this podcast, you insisted that going to court was your secret business development sauce.
Yeah.
So you come a long way, but I think that the fact you're going there, and it probably dovetails something we want to talk about today, but I would say that it is telling that in the growth mode, there are moments, and the good news is you have a person to take over, but it isn't like turnkey. And so that as you're growing, one of the roles of the founder, right? Besides, if you decide to have a caseload, you don't, not making a value judgment, but regardless, there needs to be enough bandwidth so that when shit bad happens, you are there. Now, with time, there'll be layers of people that are between you and that. But at the end of the day, until you add each of those layers, it's you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's crazy to think that, I'm paying somebody, $1.25 to start, and they have no idea what they're doing.
Well, no, it's not that. That's just what the market is, what you can
I'm just
get.
saying, 10 years ago, I could pay
understood.
somebody 50
What I'm taking is a step back, like psychologically. We all hear we got to be out of the business. And the truth is, I wish it for you, and I'm amazed with the steps you've taken, right? I never had a caseload. You've had a caseload till relatively recently. But what's I think this is telling is that if you build and don't have super redundancies that most people don't want because it's going to kill margins, what you are responsible for is the stuff that could fall between the cracks.
Right.
Now, with time, you'll either have excess capacity where you'll have a lawyer that can do that. And on other areas, you'll have administrative help and things like that when somebody leaves. But as you're building and growing, one of your superpowers is, hey, I'm not going to have that redundancy. I'll replace somebody when they leave, but I know that it's not going to happen instantaneously. And even if it does, that's the piece that allows you to keep the lion's share of what's going on, because you're at the end of the day where the buck stops. You're sick as hell, and yet you're still going to court because it has to get done.
And I picked up 2 new clients while I was there. Clients come walking out of the courtroom, they're like, man, you're smooth. And I was like, yeah, let me get your number. And this is a learning lesson for my new associate. He said, why don't you just give him a card?
No.
And I said, no. We don't do that here. We get their information, and now my people, and one of them closed, and one of them says they're going to close on Monday.
That's awesome. So don't tell me, look, so that doesn't mean you're going back to court now.
God, no. God, no. No, I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, it's interesting. Being in the weeds is kind of fun. I can't imagine that I'd want to do it all the time. But select cases, I could see myself. I mean, I like cross-examining cops. I've always liked that. I will continue to like that. If given the opportunity, I think I'd jump in with both feet and do it some more. The opportunities became fewer, and so I found ways to scale my firm so that I could make more revenue, because that was more of a challenge than getting into court.
You have cameras in the courtroom?
No. Well, they do. We've got that big Gone Girl murder case that's going on in Connecticut.
No, could you get a camera in the courtroom with permission? Could you record your cross-examination and turn that into a video?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I could do it. In fact, one of the things I thought of was that news media is allowed into the courtroom. I couldn't just send my camera guy in, but if I created a blog,
or had a friend with a blog or what have you, what I'm saying is it would be pretty cool. You're telling me you walked out with 2 clients, they saw you there. Imagine if you could scale that. And that was the conversion factor when somebody came to the website.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. So, okay. So speaking of websites, There's a topic that I've been thinking about that I want to talk to you about, and it actually came up in a forum that we're both part of. And it comes down to you're a solo and you just launched. And now we're pretty far from those days. Um, but I think we have some wisdom looking back, hindsight's 2020 type of thing. And I want to walk you through a number of different price points where you are solo and you've hung a shingle and now you're at your marketing budget, if you even have one other than the dollars that are in your pocket, is $1,000 a month. What do you spend your money on as you start a new firm? And
Wow.
then let's assume you already have a
And you know what? I'm
website
going to
up.
say, look, I can't really remember that, right? I was different time, different place. And I don't want to cop out and say, I literally can't put myself there. But I think it's the wrong question. And you've discussed this before. If you're starting a firm and you want to scale versus just take whatever comes in, you got your shingle, you're on Main Street, you know a few people. But if people start you, this is your words, not mine. What is the business plan and how are you capitalized? And this isn't like you need like an inheritance, but if the answer is I want to scale and I got $1,000 a month, there's not that much.
No, but come on. I think you're missing the point here. I am, I got pissed at my boss, or I just said I can do this on my own. So I hung a shingle. I have a website. It's got 10 pages on it. And I've got a small amount of reserves, and I'm hustling business. I'm hustling a family law case, a criminal law case. I know I want to do PI, or I know I want to do family, or I know I want to do criminal, but right now I'm doing doorway law, right? It comes in, it's a house closing. I can do it. I can pick up $750. I'm going to take it because that's feeding my family, paying my bills, paying my rent. I know my ideal is to scale and get up there. But
It's not
right now,
when you're
I
when you're
need
doing
revenue.
door law. The thing I don't do, you go to enough BNIs, some more comes to you. Okay, I mean there's that, right? There's the sweat equity. To me, and we talk. Remember that we had the whole discussion a number of years back, months back maybe, of website versus a Google business profile.
Yep.
You got your website, you got your 10 pages, you can't afford SEO. I would say I would spend that $1,000 figuring out how to get reviews, not nefariously,
Yeah.
but whatever it was, buying people coffee, having meetings with them. The thought is it is such a limited amount of resources. On the PI side, the average cost per case at scale can go anywhere from 1,000 to 6,000, depending on the market. Right. So it's not like you're going to get anything at scale. You're saying, hey, for doorway law, I think that a lot of the stuff that's in your DNA, which is hitting up everybody you could. I'd spend the day on LinkedIn and or Facebook if the people are connected with you, and hit every person. You figure out what they do and what you do and what they don't do, and you make direct asks. And there's a lot of stuff out there that people don't want a referral fee on that they need. Again, I don't like this as a scalable model. Civil lit, at least in my market, there's nobody raising their hand for small dollar civil lit. Now, it's
Right.
not a free lunch. You got to kiss a lot of toads. Some people don't have money, but there are plenty of places that there is more work than there is anything else. My gut is if you need cash quickly, it is in my market, family law. There are many fewer lawyers than there are plenty of cases, less qualified lawyers.
So
And
would
then
you invest that $1,000 into LSAs for family law cases?
potentially,
I
yes.
mean, I think my opinion is take that first $1,000, say, January, February, March, you're going to have a grand that you can spend each one of those months. I'd hire a VA to help get me reviews, for $250 a month,
The
making
issue is, who
calls
are
to
they
former
calling?
clients.
That's the problem. You just started on
Former
your own.
clients.
But at that point, you got more time than money. You text each of your clients, they're in your phone.
Well, that's true.
No, I'm just saying, let's be real. Unless you have the technology set up to text people, the emails don't do any good. It's
Right.
only text that really convert. So you're personally doing that. Again, there's no bad idea, but the idea is, hey, it's playing your network as hard as you can for starters.
Right.
And then I think, again, give it, if it's doorway law where I stand, the most convertible with the most convertible thing would be low to medium dollar family law from where I sit, in that criminal does not work as well with LSAs, as we both know. It's hit or miss, right? Depends on the market, depends on a lot of factors. You need money to be there. People are willing to pay money to get out of a marriage.
Sure.
And if you are responsive, it is such a difficult area of law. There are rock stars at the highest level, like my good friend Sue Moss in New York, right? Who are these rock stars. But there are, in the trenches, there are a lot of people that if you can walk and chew gum, you will beat out the sort of dinosaurs that are bitter and jaded. And to me, again, off the top of my head, anything that can make money the most quickly, and that if your dream is PI, once you have some cash flow, investing in a sustainable marketing budget to get PI, but that, the most people I know who broke out to do PI is you go to your local trial lawyer dinner, you say hello to everybody, and you say, I want your scraps. And they all have them, and they make money, and you get to know them, and you're not threatening to them. And to me, it's not marketing in a traditional sense. There is always, I don't want to say an underbelly because it sounds bad, but I know plenty of people that showed up at trial lawyer dinner, got those things, and they're now on the listservs putting those multi-million-dollar verdicts up. Because once they got critical mass, somebody else took those bottom cases and they didn't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm just, my whole thought on this is, I never went into my practice planning on doing doorway law, but that first year and a half, I did a residential real estate closing. I did a divorce. But I wanted to be a DUI lawyer and
Correct.
focus
And
on that. But I was like, I'm hungry this week and I can
right,
figure
but
it out. So
but that goes back to when you say you're ready to go. Like, when is that? And let's say if you're looking at how long it's going to take you to get to sustainability, if you go too early, it's going to take you longer than if you have some that's tremendous savings. But if you're saying to me, where do you spend 1,000 versus where do you spend 10, 20, or 30,000? I mean, within reason. If you have no resources and you're
yeah, I mean,
starting out a firm,
that's my history, right? I
no,
I hung a
well,
shingle with
no,
zero
no, no, right.
dollars and
And what I'm
zero
saying is
cents.
my wish is not for somebody to be independently wealthy, but for somebody to have some rolling start of some sort. Because the faster you go to that silo of what you want to do, the quicker you're going to make real money.
Of course. But what about the person who has no bankroll and literally has 5 grand in their bank account and says, I'm going to do this and just launches. And
Right.
there, there's no there, and so what do you do with that first 5 grand?
And that, to me, look, there's a bunch of, we've sort of, I think, hit them, but I think that the first establishment of the firm, besides a basic website, which is not expensive, besides the GMB that's free, besides getting reviews, which is sweat equity when you start, it is hitting your network as hard as you can, because the great thing about doorway law is everything is monetizable.
Right.
Versus right now, if I get a bankruptcy case, an immigration case, we don't do those things. They don't monetize. And so the sooner you can, and the only way to not have a broken business model, that's like we talk about what the average lawyer makes in this country. The reason you're doing this is to do better. It's really pushing yourself towards away from doorway law as quickly as you can, because while it feels good and there's some dollars, it's just not scalable.
Oh, I don't think it's scalable or sustainable, but I think, the reality is that when you're faced with I lost my job and
Right.
I'm
That's
doing
different.
this thing, I got no safety net. I'm just doing it. I think,
Understood. But that's, I guess what I'm saying is, you were saying somebody makes a decision. I think that when you make that decision, is you
but
like,
it's also like having a baby, man. There's never a right time to have a baby. There's always something else. There's
well,
always, I've never, when my opinion, there's always going to be a reason not to take the leap.
well, yes and no. I'll go with your analogy. At 19, is there a reason not to have a baby?
There's plenty of reasons,
No, no, no. What I'm saying is, and when you're 25, a number of those reasons have dissipated. There's still
but
some,
new ones may have occurred.
correct. And when you're 35, a lot of this. So the question is there a sweet spot that doesn't come with the teenage mother concept, right? And look, there are people there, they have their kid, they're empty nesters at 38. Maybe they're the smart ones,
Right.
right? Right. But it's similarly, are there things that you pick up? I mean, I'm looking at my own track, right? I joined a law firm as a dysfunctional associate, not their fault, my fault, for 2.5 years. I learned a fuck ton, even if I wasn't like the greatest associate ever. I flexed my muscles doing something entrepreneurial. The things you pick up before you go and make that leap are significant and may, in fact, put you on the path to being way more successful than just saying, you know what, I'm 19 years old. I don't see a reason not to have a baby. You could. And you know what? There are a bunch of 19-year-olds that are amazing moms and doing dads who do incredible stuff. But how many of those 19-year-old couples make it through the first 5 years of child rearing together? Not a
Oh,
ton.
absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. There's almost never a perfect time to do
No, but
anything.
the- but I'm coming back and saying I think there are times where statistically it is less likely. And history is written by the victor. If it's great, great. But how many of the 19-year-old couples end up working out? And I'm just
Yeah, I
saying,
don't know.
statistically, I mean, again, I've always wished that somebody would put out these studies. What are the correlations to staying together? Is age that you get married? Is same religion? Race? Like what could we say that would take our statistics up? And
I
I don't
think I,
know.
I think well, they say that the number one thing that people fight about is finances. So I think it's money mindset and
I
financial
have plenty of
security.
rich friends that get divorced. The other end, you see people that make a ton of money and then they have the
Oh
freedom.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and they get divorced because they can afford to get divorced.
it's true,
So
very
you're
true. The
just like,
middle,
I'm buying myself out of this
right, when
relationship.
you have nothing, it doesn't matter. You had nothing before, you got
Right.
nothing after. So
Exactly.
I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to take back your analogy, which is I think sometimes the starting of the firm can you, like, let's say 25, you finished undergrad, you've had a grad degree, you've started yourself in working to a point where you've worked in an office, you know what you're doing. Are there steps that should be done? Because we can give advice. Yes, given the person that's got nothing, $1,000, we can have that academic argument. But I think the better answer is, what do you, and this was your question from a couple of years back, what should you be doing to start a firm? Why are you doing it on a flyer? Why is there not a business plan? Do you know
Sure.
what it's like? Asking after the kid is coming what it takes to raise a kid versus, you know what? I'm good. I know what it's going to take and I'm comfortable with it. Fine. But the idea of I have a kid and I got $1,000, what do I do now? Versus to have a kid, I'm going to need this much income and I want to wait till I get there. Now, I'm not saying never have kids because you don't have it. There's an argument not to do that. But assuming you're on a trajectory in life to get yourself that, I feel that, like, I don't love like, I'm happy to answer it. We're happy to have this academic conversation. But I think that as I develop the firm the way that I see it now and I look back, the more you have a plan and a vision rather than I'm fighting for survival. And there are people that make it with fighting for survival, but there are plenty. There's a reason that number of $60,000 a year, whatever the crazy number that lawyers make is nationally,
Right.
is so low that I would ask people, hey, this isn't like you should wait indefinitely. And there are people I've met. There's an amazing power couple I met out of Atlanta, started this thing right out of law school. But look at the market. It's not a coincidence. If you plant your flag in Atlanta for PI, there are things that happen there that probably aren't going to happen in other markets,
Sure.
good and bad. So
So I'm wondering then, in light of all of this stuff, how many law firms do you think launch with a business plan? I'd say
very
fewer than 10%.
few, but
I'd say
with a
fewer than 10%.
but with a vision of any sort. And I broke my own rule. It wasn't like I sat there with a vision. I needed to make a buck, but I also
Right.
came with a fuck ton of education. I brought somebody, partnered with somebody who knew how to litigate. Like there were pieces that were in place. You didn't just take a flyer. And I know weird stuff happened with your dad, but you had a launch pad. And it's not like you should be a nepo baby. You can't run a firm if you're not. But what is your advantage so that you're not sitting there? It may be your wife has some inheritance, and you can put that towards it. Whatever the permutation is. Or you're like, look, I know that there's nothing. I'm gonna see. I have the personality to walk door to door and get some cases
Right.
built, and I'm gonna get there. But the idea that you're asking after it's launched, how do you spend $1,000? I think it's yes, we can talk about it, but the better answer is what was the plan before you jumped in, and not
But
just jumping if it's
I'm saying most places don't have a vision other than I'm going to be self-employed and don't have a written out business plan. They just
of
say,
course I barely have
sure. I mean, that's the
a
majority of the people that are in our audience, right? They just said, hey, I'm taking this leap. Let's do it.
No, but if we surveyed our audience, most had some form of an angle. They'd apprenticed under somebody for a while. They had people that loved them. If you do something, if you work for somebody for 6 years doing a type of law in a community, you'll have the ability to flex out, even if you weren't the generator of people,
Right.
right? The point is, if you just say, I'm putting a shingle out without not a written business plan, but what is the model you plan on following? It can work, but like we talk about the number of businesses that fail, what are the odds that you're going to be in that? If it's not, again, forget about a written out business plan, but do you have resources to we talk about, people come to me very often. I'm in a competitive market. I'm doing a highly competitive area of law. What does it cost? And I'm like, well, this is what a website costs. But the reason that I didn't want to do a low dollar thing for Blue Shark was there are people that ask you to do stuff that are upside down. Then we got our buddy in New Jersey doing trust and estates. He did stuff for a long time. He's a personable guy. He had some gray hair. He knew how to run a business. Business plan, no, but he was in a he did something that other people weren't fishing in as much. A cheap website could pop. Great. If that same guy said, I want to do PI with no resources coming out, it's going to be much tougher. So the idea is, does your skill set, experience, and resources, forget about a business plan, does that allow you to get a couple steps forward? And I don't want to stop at anybody's dream, but the likelihood of success is so much stronger. How many times do you get a memo that says, or not, but an announcement on social or what have you? I started on my own. Now I'm going back into a firm.
Oh, I
No
see that all the
shame,
time.
no shame in it. But had somebody sort of calculated some of the stuff up front, would they be in better shape to make that? And where you go for the job with thought of, this is my stepping stone. A guy sent me a resume. One of my professors from law school sent me a kid's resume, and I think his cover letter said, I want to open my own firm. I'm like, well, look, I love the gumption. That's not the guy I want to hire, because I want a guy who's going to sit and do the widget for
Right. Right.
us. All of that said, if you know you need that, we did have a guy that came as a junior associate. He had this crazy blog about marketing and operations. Like he had this, and I say this, like I looked at the early blog posts on it. It was craziness. He had never owned or used software, but was reviewing software on a blog. He has turned this. He was a junior associate with us, moved to another state, blog got improved. He built a website. I remember he could only afford a website. We got him a website when he moved on his own. He then, had some success, added SEO, slowly but surely built it into something that was with thought and purpose. His JOBs were there to help him launch. It wasn't a JOB and one day you said, screw it, I take this job and shove it, I'm on my own. It was methodical as far as how that's a on-ramp to what you want to do, rather than, I don't like working for somebody, here's my shingle. I think that's much, because as you said, as you talk, look, let's put this back to Jay, who's dealing with legal talent within you. There are people there that could go out on their own, and there are people that if they do, they're likely to fall on their face. Now, you want them to stay with you, so you want to make it worth their while,
Right.
but from afar. So I guess what I'm trying to do is reformulate the question, which is, as the wedding singer said, information I could have used yesterday. I'm trying to put that out there. that like I don't want to have the discussion of what to do with $1,000. You could spend time on it, but to me, what's much more interesting is what can you do with that 1, 2, 3, or 4 years before you pull the ripcord to make it so that when you do, you're in the best possible shape, because that's a hell of a lot more powerful than whatever $1,000 you're going to throw at something.
Oh, of course, of course. So then here's the follow-up question I have for you on that. And for me, my vision really hasn't changed. We're focusing on the area of law that I want to focus on. I enjoy getting us to the point where we're scaling and we've got redundancies and a lifestyle that I like. When do you revisit your vision? Because your vision started with you and David, just hanging a shingle and going for it. Did you always have this vision of multiple verticals, mid eight figure law firm? Was that always your vision? Or when do you revisit the vision and then as your law firm now, I mean, how many lawyers do you have in your firm now?
40,
40?
44, some
Okay.
nonsense.
Your vision, I think, needs to be communicated to them to some extent, right? Or is it not communicated to them because they're there to do their work and that's it? Because I would think that you want people to last, they need to buy into your vision for the future.
I,
When do you revisit? We were talking, the first part of the show, we were talking about before you launch, what's your vision, what's your plan, that type of thing. Now let's go on the back end. You've been doing it for 20 years, right? You've scaled, you're moving, you're doing what you like to do. What point do you start to revisit the vision for the next way that the firm is going to and
I,
who do you involve in that conversation?
right. So I think that as in the time I've known you, I've gone from without any coaching to a lot of high quality coaching. I mean, I went with, I don't know who I'd ever trust, to meeting people like Knock Hazel and Biggs and
Right.
people like that. So I feel very blessed. I've added systematized meetings and created a C-suite. I think one of the benefits of EOS, and I don't want to just say it's the only way, but any sort of making an org chart, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
just and writing everything out, regardless of what system you use, and figuring out, you may be just you and a person sitting in your office. And you're like, okay, well, I got me and an office assistant. That office assistant's doing the accounting. That where are the seats and who's currently sitting in them, and where do you want to get to? Right. And if the question is it may be within 5 years, I want, again, it's not for the sake of this, but I'm going to have the scale at $5 million. I'm going to be able to have people in each of these seats. On the way up, you can't. You're doubling
Right.
up,
But
tripling
on
up.
the way up, I mean, the accounting, when you only open 2 files a week, the accounting work takes 15 minutes.
Right. And depending on the type of law, and as that
Right.
gets more complicated, but it may be a $200 a month bookkeeper.
Right.
It's nothing, but God willing, it gets more complicated. So I think for me, if you ask me personally, my eyes have been open to the power of the meetings, the power of delegation, realizing that for two reasons. One, I may not be best at it. I've gotten older, crotchier, the ADHD's gotten worse. So I don't have patience anymore. Not that I ever did, but it's, you get worse as you get older. So that by really forcing myself to work with direct reports, it's frustrating because it's not as good as if I did it myself.
Sure.
But at the same time, it has allowed me to scale. But I think it's having that team, right? And I watch like Mike Morris, who's a step above me, where he really can like disappear for 2 months and everything goes fine. I'm somewhere between that and, we have a C-suite, I'm involved, but part of it was necessity. I started the firm because I needed money. As it built and grew, and I had the responsibility of another organization like Blue Shark, I didn't have that 40 hours a week for the organization. I
Right.
had 20. What can you do with it? And the truth is, I think the firm runs better because I've allowed it to scale with other people. And I actually have an issue within our firm right now. We have one person at a senior level who doesn't want to give stuff up. In fact, they're grabbing stuff that's not even theirs and bringing it in. And it's fascinating because I can see in somebody else what I couldn't necessarily see in myself, which is, hey, go spend the money on the ops person. The last piece for me is a person doing the marketing position. That's like the last piece that I don't have genuinely set. Um, and so I'm trying my very best to spend the money to fill those slots so that it actually runs like a business and force others at the firm to do the same. But as that happens, the next chapter is you can work on other verticals. You can work on tweaking things. What I'm trying not to do is micromanage and dabble. We have an amazing recruiter. Let her do her job, feed her information, but try not to be the frenetic idiot who's calling. But why is this not filled? Rather, having your cadence of meetings and working and knowing that it's not going to be perfect, but that you're going to follow, as we say at Blue Shark, trust the process.
Yeah, getting out of the way and letting people do their job is one of the most difficult thing I think for any law firm owner. And it's funny, I just booked a flight to go out to Las Vegas in a couple of weeks. Well, I didn't book it. I had my assistant, I said, here's the information, book me on this flight, provide me with the options, book me on this flight, that sort of thing. And I gave her my preference for an aisle seat and all those things. And then I got the thing and I'm like, oh, let me check out the reservation. Okay. Well, I think I'd rather be in this seat. Now, I'm on the I'm in seat 3, not seat 2 or seat B.
Look,
You
I
know,
believe I get this better than anything. We're going to lose some people on this. I went between Blue Shark and Price Benowitz. As you know, I'm on the road a decent amount. We found a guy in the Philippines who's a former United agent. I love the reservations. I still will change. He's now 98% there. But you know what? I'll say, you know what? I feel like being back a row. I have no problem changing a seat. But the fact that I'm not doing the research, and you're not the same way, for the cheapest flight, for the best chance of an upgrade. You don't play that game, I do. But all the stuff that I used to suck up time on, he is taking care of. Frequent flyer stuff. We get all these points for living our lives the way we do. And it is a full-time job booking points vacations. The fact that somebody else can sit there, do it, let me know that, there was, the game this summer, it was a 20,000 point upgrade to get from Emirates Business to First at the airport. I had a full cheat sheet from this guy on everything that I needed to do, how to do it, where to transfer points. My point is,
see, that's your next business for law firm owners.
nobody wants to pay for it. I wish
I'll
they
pay
would.
for it.
You
I'll
don't
pay
pay
for
for it.
that right now.
But that is look, that's why travel agencies died, because you can do it yourself.
Right.
And then, so if I said to you, that's great, but it's $500 a month to use this guy, I'm making that up, whatever it is, right? You'd be like, yeah, but I like doing it. And you're going to do, like, that's the issue, is that when there's something it's what we used to call C tasks back in the day, ordering from Staples way, way back. You check the box, it felt good. If you can get rid of that nonsense. And the problem is, I now see my management team struggle with stuff I struggled with, which is, how do I make sure they're not doing that so they're working at their highest and best use? And that's partially where, and thanks to you in no small part, the international layering of people has been great, because it allows other people to then push things down. And that has been, I think, what's allowed certain things to flourish. My IT department is playing at a place I could never be at before. Accounting. I could never find people in my home market who would work for the going wage of $60,000 plus or
And
minus.
numbers are universal, so that's a good thing. There's no
Right.
nuance
Well,
with numbers.
it's not a free lunch. So
No, never. But
okay. I've sort of gone on this tangent. I'd like to sort of come back because I have a final thing for you. January 21, we started building out a virtual team. Approximately 35 right now, Price Benowitz and Blue Shark, Latin America. It came up at my L10. And this is also a question for the weekly meetings. In some respects, I don't like being blindsided, but in one sense, well, so they do it. They bring it up there. They're like, hey, there's pushback right now that we give paid holidays to all our domestic people, and we don't currently have the paid holidays for our international people.
see,
And
we changed that policy at our annual meeting last December. Everybody, international and stateside, they all get the same amount of time. International, we identified, here are the holidays in America. You get the same number of holidays. Like, for example,
did you do floating holidays, or this
so
was,
so
let me,
we
let
have
me, let me
so
just come back. We'll go to this in 1 second, but I'm going to add this to the mix. The issue du jour wasn't just being richer, which we should be, right? Continue to be competitive. We're now seeing people trying to pilfer people offline. But what I'm starting to, what they were seeing was, hey, let's say that Thanksgiving is not a holiday in their country.
Right.
But if we're closed, intake needs two people. They don't need 25 people. Maybe one person's needing an accounting to support, but it's a fraction. And all of a sudden, people are being told not to work on a day they want to work. And so, like, there's no doubt we need to up our benefits, and we're doing that, right? Because you want to retain. If you don't,
Right.
my thought was when we started, pay more per hour and people won't care. And I think what's happens is over time, people are going to want both over time. They want competitive pay plus benefits. When I started, I think the world, like, less people were at the game, more people are fighting for these
Right.
people now. So the question is, like, yes, we need to up the benefits so they don't feel like second class citizens. But more importantly, my question to you is, how do you deal with days? Do you give floating holidays? How do you deal with days you don't need them working, but they don't necessarily want off?
So we have basically level one and level two holidays. Level one is the firm is closed and we are not working. And and so 4th of July, we're not working. We're closed. Christmas, Thanksgiving, we're not working. We are closed. There are level two holidays, and whenever we onboard, we ask them what culturally specific days, culturally relevant days are in your country, are days that you would like to have off. And we try to match it and say, hey, look, there are 5 floating holidays in the United States that our people generally take, but you have 5 that you can apply to your, and you just got to let us know. It's not, hey, this year it's in March and next year it's in October. If this is the day that you guys use, then this is the day that you'll always use. So that's how we do it. But we want to make sure that everybody has the same number of
So
paid
you,
holidays,
you do your US five plus five floating?
something like that. I mean,
No, no,
maybe
no, no, but
7 and 7.
and part of it is this is a great example. You know, there are a lot of different ways to do this, right? If you were through a third party service that books, I know you have some each way, but those people are generally making substantially less than the people you direct hire.
Right,
So my attitude was, hey, I'm going to pay somebody, if they're essentially contractors, that higher rate. Not that by US standards it's that high, but I'm going to do that because it sort of builds that in.
right.
And what's sort of what I'm finding is the irony, and this is the piece where it's harder to just do a blanket. You built that into your pro forma. You're giving somebody, I'm making this up. Let's say the average person from one of the name brand services is $5 to $6 an hour.
Right.
They're getting after you pay them whatever you're paying them. If we're paying $7 to $9 an hour for an equivalent person, and then granted, I get a deal because it's going direct. So maybe the answer is shut up. You made your margins,
Right.
but now add this in as I'm saying it aloud. But in theory, they're getting 60% more, 45 to 60% more than what somebody would if they went through one of those other organizations. Do you need to do both? I think the problem is if you don't, it just looks bad, even if monetarily it's as good or better.
I mean, at the end of the day, I want all my people, both stateside and remote, to think themselves as part of the team. I don't want to give my remote people fewer paid days off than my American people. We do paid days off, paid time off based on how long you've been with us. So if you've been with us as a receptionist that's living in Jamaica, and we found you and you're not part of an agency and that type of thing. We're giving you the same number of time if you are a paralegal from Connecticut.
And I
Uh,
think what struck
you'll
us is as you start doing this, you made your early mistakes. We now have people going on, in their third year of service, just want to make sure that we're doing something that makes it competitive.
Right, right. And I think, for me at least, we not only want to be competitive stateside, we want to be competitive internationally. I mean, some of the best employees I've gotten are referrals from existing
No,
employees who said, "Oh,
absolutely.
I worked with this woman at a call center for Comcast. She was great. Everybody loved her. I'll call her and see if she wants a job." And next thing you know, you've got 2 rock stars working for
No,
you
no, no,
because
100%. But then the question becomes, you know, usually you look at attrition as your bellwether if somebody's leaving for more money.
Right.
And that hasn't been the case, but maybe the question is, do you do this preventatively to make sure you're not
Right.
there? Because that's the stuff that as business owners is tough because if you've already paid for something, money never comes back, right?
Right.
You've never, nobody's ever taken less money because they're less productive. You create floors as you go. What I find fascinating here is, it's moving somebody from a contractor mentality, which is how we started, into an employee mentality. And I think part of it just may be, hey, as I think aloud, it may be, okay, you know what? My second year, there's enough added value that will bump that there. And maybe the first year is more of a probationary period,
Right.
and then it jumps into that. So that's my light bulb for today.
There you go. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week on the Law Firm Blueprint. Thank you so much for being with us. As always, you can take us on the go wherever you get your podcast by searching up the Law Firm Blueprint podcast. Of course, join our Facebook group and be sure whenever you're suggested to, give us a 5-star review on any of the podcast platforms. He is Seth Price. I am Jay Ruane. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.